What's up, nerds? Welcome back. As you all know, there is a new Batman movie out, and I actually had the chance to go and watch it last night, and I have a few thoughts. So it's time for another good old-fashioned movie review. And yes, before I get into this, there's going to be spoilers, so if that is a problem for you, you're probably going to want to turn off the video right now. All right, so let's get some of the obvious out of the way. Robert Pattinson as the Batman. As Batman, fine. He did okay. He did his thing. He brought what I kind of figured he was going to bring to it. And when he's in the suit, he does pretty good. He's not a good Bruce Wayne. He did not embody that character at all. Aside from just the fact that he doesn't come across as a billionaire playboy, he didn't really have the charisma. He didn't play up any delineation when he's in the role of Bruce Wayne. It's basically just, oh, it's Batman, but not in the suit. Like, he still acted very much the same. So, the other thing, too, is just the long hair. The long hair always in his face. I hated it so much. That was something that annoyed me, too, with Christian Bale's Batman, that they had the long hair, because when you look at Bruce Wayne in the comics, he always has, a short haircut. So the fact that they've been having these Batmen who have longer hair, granted, I'll give Ben Affleck that credit. He did have, the short hair thing. That's kind of more what it should look like, but that was definitely something that bothered me throughout the entire movie, just the long hair and always in his face. I was like, God damn it. But it's okay. That's just a more minor gripe. There are a few things though that they did do very well. For one thing, Gotham City. They perfectly captured Gotham City. I'm pretty sure it was filmed like a lot in Chicago. I'm not sure. I might look it up after I do this video, but it definitely had that Chicago vibe to it. Of course, it's always dark there, but that kind of makes sense for Gotham City. There were a couple like shots like during the day, so I mean, even then they still had a very gray tone to it, but overall, especially at night, it definitely captured that feeling of Gotham. One thing that I will definitely say for it is this kind of evoked more of a feeling in many regards. It evoked more of a sense of the Arkham games. It kind of had that feel to it, especially Arkham City, a little bit of Arkham Knight. Like they both kind of had that same sort of thing going for it. So I can see where that was probably serving also as a pretty major inspiration. There were a few other inspirations and little like callbacks to certain things that I did like. One thing that I absolutely loved, is, well, let me kind of scale that back halfway. I love where he's living, but not where he's living, if that makes any sense. Let me explain. So he doesn't live, we all know, Wayne Manor. It's separate from the city. It's almost kind of basically on its own like hill or whatever, huge, manicured lard yard. And this is not that. This is him living in a tower in the middle of, Gotham City, apparently overlooking a park. So that part I was just a little bit, that kind of seemed weird, but whatever. It didn't become a huge factor in the movie. There are a couple of times where it's just kind of like reference that that's where he's living. So I didn't have that big of a problem with that. One thing I did absolutely love is the inside. It has very classic Gothic architecture on the inside, and as soon as I saw it, I fell in love. I wanted to live there. Like it did what it needed to do. You know what I mean? Like seeing the inside made me wish that I was Bruce Wayne. So already, they kind of had me won over in that regard. So I will give them credit for that. Like I said, a lot of the locations for this, they definitely captured it very well. It's absolutely what it should be. It's exactly where Batman should be. So I will give them credit for that, even if they got a bad Bruce Wayne for this. But they got an okay Batman. Speaking of Batman, let's just kind of talk about his suit for a second. There are a few things I like it overall. It works, on camera in the scenes. It works pretty well. There are a few things about it though that are kind of confusing. For one thing, the gauntlets with the little like metal bars thing. They served no real purpose other than when he would be hitting people with them a lot. And that in that regard, I can definitely see why you would do that. But I don't know why they would do put those little metal bars when, like I said, that seems to be their only purpose. when we all know that the more classic look is with the spikes like down the side. And if you wanted to have something like armor that he could hit people with, you could still do that, like have black plating or something. I don't know why they had to do all these little like metal, like whatever the hell they were supposed to be. So that was just kind of strange to me. This Batman does not throw batarangs. That's again another thing that I will give some credit to Ben Affleck's Batman. He did use batarangs. Um, he has one sort of that's the chest emblem that he can take out and use as like a knife and shit like that, and then he kind of like pops it back on. So I don't know, kind of a weird decision, but I guess it works for what they were trying to go for there. Um, Overall, the costume itself has a very like homemade, handmade type of feel to it. Like the armor plating, that's one thing that I will say. It has a very, handmade type of thing to it, especially when you look at like the stitching on the mask and everything like that. You can tell like it was made by hand. But then at the same time, it seems to have superhuman qualities, and that there are several scenes where he's literally being shot in the chest by different calibers of rifles, handguns, even a shotgun at one point, and none of them penetrate at all. Like they all, like the bullets literally just bounce off, which I've seen many different videos about, like, Kevlar and, armor, like that people wear like bulletproof armor and shit. I've never seen any where the bullets just bounce off. Like at the very least they get lodged in there, and then at some point it's basically, if you shoot it enough times, it just becomes tissue paper. So I don't really know what they were trying to go for there. Like they, in many regards, they tried to ground this in reality, but then when it came to that, they were like, "Oh, we can go full fantasy." So, I mean, it seemed like a very weird choice. Like that's again where I kind of felt a little bit of the Arkham. Well, not even really, because with the Arkham games, like you get shot twice and you die. But I don't know. It kind of came across as very weird to me. There's one scene where he's like walking through like a hall in the dark, and they're literally shooting at him like with a rifle into his chest like several times, and he basically just like walks it off. Like he does show, that it's at least affecting him a little bit. He doesn't just stand there and let them shoot him, but it still kind of seemed like a weird thing to me. So there was that for sure. Um, Another thing, the Batmobile, still don't like it. I haven't liked it since the trailer, and I didn't like it in this movie. There was some fun with it when it finally comes on, because he gets in the car when he finally debuts it for the first time. He's going to take off, and he kind of just like goes a little bit, and it kind of reminded me a little bit of like those times when you get in the car and you get ready to go, and then you hit the gas a little bit and you realize like, oh shit, I'm in reverse, and then you have to like that's kind of how it felt to me. That was the same type of energy. Or like he started to go, he's like, oh shit, my seatbelt, something like that. Like he forgot something, and then he was like, okay, now I'm ready to go. So that seemed like a very weird thing, and it got a chuckle out of me. So I don't know why they did it like that. I guess it was that scene where he's trying to like egg on the Penguin to get into this car chase or whatever, which was the other thing. I will say I did like Colin Farrell as the Penguin. Phenomenal job. Still too tall for the part as far as who the Penguin is, and he didn't really have the whole like bird motif going on all that much. But then again, in this movie, he's supposed to be just second banana to Carmine Falcone. So I can see where there wasn't as much emphasis on him. And I believe he's getting a series coming soon. So hopefully they kind of play up that element a little bit more with that character, considering that is a big thing for Penguin. He has a whole bird thing. So I hope to see more of that, come along. But overall, I think he did a good job as far as just playing like a mobster, which overall is kind of what I felt like, Matt Reeves was doing here. He was telling a mob story, and I'm someone, I love mob movies. So it really did feel like there was a mob story here, but then they said, okay, let's drop Batman and Catwoman into that world, into that conflict, and see how they would actually, affect the overall outcome. So overall, for me, like I said, being a mob movie aficionado, it definitely served its purpose, and it definitely appealed to me. But what else was there? There was Andy Serkis as Alfred. Did okay. He didn't have a whole lot going on. There was one scene with him where, and this is where I was talking about with the spoilers thing, where he opens up a package that was sent to Bruce Wayne that it was actually a bomb. And in that scene, he's in like this study or whatever, looking over like all the mail and shit. And in it, like near the window on a pedestal or whatever, is a bust of William Shakespeare, which when I saw it, I was like, oh, nice callback to the Adam West thing. If you all remember, that was how he got into the cave, opening up the head. I actually have a small one here. It's back over there. I have a little tiny one that my mom got me. And you just open up like the where the neck is, and that's where he like presses the button to get into the cave. So I kind of like that they kind of they had that little touch. There is another little touch that I'll mention in a moment, to the actual comics that I was a little bit surprised to see them include in there. But while we're on the topic of characters, um, Riddler, still don't like it. I will say when they actually revealed him, the actor playing him does look like Edward Nigma. He does look, like he could fit that particular part, you know what I mean? But the way they had him dressed and the way they had him acting, didn't enjoy it because it was kind of like they took the idea of the Riddler, combined it with all of the methodology, I guess, of the Zodiac killer, and then also they threw in some of Jigsaw from the Saw movies. They threw some of that in there, especially in regard to the way that he would kill people, in the way that he, kind of sent messages and shit to people. So, well, to Batman, really. So for that, that's kind of when I saw that I was like, I don't like this interpretation of the Riddler, but I kind of knew going in I wasn't going to already. But for the movie itself, I see where it worked. I just still don't agree that that's the Riddler. I'm not saying they had to go full camp with him and have him, do the Jim Carrey thing. Like, no, we don't need that. But I definitely do feel like this was not the Riddler. If this is one thing I mentioned to my boyfriend. If they hadn't so spectacularly fucked up Victor Zsasz in the Birds of Prey movie, they could have done this with Victor Zsasz, quite honestly. They really could have, because I feel like it would have fit the tone of the movie, considering the type of character Victor Zsasz is, and it would have been overall more cohesive, especially because that character is a little bit less known. Yeah, there are a lot of people who know him. We know his MO. We know the way that he operates. But that's why I'm saying, because the wider audience, the people that this is going to actually appeal to, they don't know that character that well. You can do that with him, and it's not going to be the biggest shock. It's not going to be the biggest change. Whereas with Riddler, it's like, this is the guy who's supposed to be wearing like the suit with the question mark like motif. Like, none of that. Well, I mean, he did have like the jacket that had like the question mark painted on it, so I guess there was that. But it overall, I didn't like that interpretation of the character. Again, it worked for what they were trying to do, but again, that's not Riddler. So it was kind of hard having to kind of separate those in my mind. So take that for what you will, I guess. I was very glad to see Carmine Falcone in this movie, especially because since we had Catwoman in there, you never really see that connection explored all that much within the live action realm, which, I mean, we've seen it in like animated movies and shows like that. Um, Definitely we've seen that type of like relationship explored there, but we've never seen it live action. So I was glad to finally see it and see like some of the little like nods again to like the comic book source material, the scene where Selena, scratches the side of his face, which is a part of, Carmine Falcone, not only just, his physical characteristics, but his backstory in that he was scratched by her. So I did like that. But let's talk about that. Let's let that cat out of the bag. Um, Zoe Kravitz as Selena Kyle. She did all right. Wasn't perfect. It definitely wasn't perfect. There were definitely a lot of way. Again, I don't. When we're talking about costumes, I don't like that mask that she had. The suit itself wasn't bad. It did look like a Catwoman suit. Not that it's that hard to do. I mean, you just have to have a very form fitting black suit. But the mask, terrible. The other thing that I kind of came to be okay with was her nails, like her manicured nails, because they did this sort of like opaque, clear, I think it's called almond shape design to it. But it does look like, an actual cat. Like if you were to see a cat's claws when they come out, like that's basically what it looked like. So I understood why they did it, and I feel like it did work, but at the same time, it didn't work in the regard that, and this is something my boyfriend and I agree on. When she wears the gloves with the claws on it to use it to like cut through glass and shit like that, that to me works much better. But with those nails that she had in this movie, she wouldn't be able to wear gloves, period. So I don't know why that was a thing. Again, I know where they were coming from with the motif of making it look like cat's claws, but it would have been much better to actually have her have the gloves with the claws and an actual mask, or at least something that didn't look so goofy. I think that's the best word I can use to describe it. It looked goofy. I mean, it's basically just a ski mask that for some reason has two little points like where the seams are, like up here, and then it's just a big huge opening on where the eyes are, where it's basically like, what was even the point? You know what I mean? It's not covering up that much. Yeah, it covers your hair and your nose, and that was literally it. There's just a little strip that just goes across here. I'm like, that's barely a mask. It's practically a beanie. But all right, hey, if that's what they want to put on her, that's fine. So I will say that they had her played relatively okay. I would have liked to see her more as like an actual thief, as we know Catwoman to be. I did see a lot of people that were saying that this movie was more so a Catwoman movie. I don't really agree that was the case. It's certainly she is a big part of it, but then again, you can tell where very much she was basically a second lead in this movie, and that's fine, but a much more minor lead than obviously Bruce Wayne and Batman. But the reason why I can see why people are probably misinterpreting it as being more so a Catwoman movie is that she also has, an actual motivation to be here. And that I was perfectly fine with because they both had something against Carmine Falcone in that Bruce is, finding out that his dad worked with him, after saving his life. He kind of like went back to him for help later on in the past, I guess, really. And then also, of course, it's Selena's dad. So she has her own, history with him, especially in regard to what happened to her mother. So that's what I'm saying. She actually had a motivation, and that's why I'm okay with it. Because if you're going to have her be in the movie and have her be, as major, of a player in the movie as you are, it would make sense for her to have legitimate, genuine motivation to want to have, something happen, to see something happen to Carmine. So she does get, her comeuppance when he does get, when he gets shot. She wanted to be the one to do it, but I mean, hey, at least he died, so she can at least take some solace in that, I guess. But I think overall she was okay. Like I said, I didn't hate her portrayal. Definitely not as much as I hated the Riddler. There were just some things about her that I was like, okay, this could have been tweaked a little bit more to actually make her more believable as Catwoman. Instead, it was kind of just, someone's interpretation of Catwoman. It still read as Catwoman, just not very strongly, if that makes any sense. So, I don't know. Overall, that could have been shored up, but well, it is what it is. Um, Trying to think, what else did we have in this movie that I wanted to talk about? I talked about the Penguin. Um, Overall, the tone of the movie, I've seen a lot of people say that it's very dark, but it kind of should be. It's Gotham City, so I mean, if you're walking into a Batman movie set in Gotham City, how much light are you expecting? How much sunshine should there be in a bit? Like, you know what I mean? Like, this isn't the Adam West era anymore, so what exactly does that even mean? It's too dark. It's Batman. That's his whole thing. He hides in shadows and he doesn't go out in the suit during the day, despite what you may have seen in The Dark Knight Rises. That's why I was just kind of like, I don't really understand that criticism. It's a Batman movie. It should be dark. You know what I mean? It should definitely be dark, especially if you want to tell a more gripping, entertaining, like I said, mob movie like this. I mean, it's going to have a darker palette. They don't have a whole lot of contrast to that. It's just one of those things that it doesn't really work when you try to put it in the light. It's kind of the same thing with Daredevil. Like Daredevil doesn't really work when you have bright, cheery, sun-filled moments. It's just that's not the tone that the character goes for, especially not anymore. Like in this modern era, there are certain characters that have a grittier type of tone to them and their stories as far as, where they're set. And Batman is definitely, quintessentially always going to be in the dark. Like that's kind of the whole thing. And that's kind of one of the themes that's in here, especially in the end, when they have like the whole seawall gets broken, or yeah, in various places, the city gets flooded, and then he helps to save, like, the new mayor, and he's, helps save a bunch of people, and he's like carrying a flare, And there's this one scene, I don't really know if anybody else has picked up on this. It may have just been me kind of wanting to read into it what I wanted to, but there's the scene where he's walking with the flare and he's leading people, to safety or whatever. And that to me very much came across as, very accurately illustrating that Batman is a light in the dark. Like, obviously he exists in darkness. He operates in darkness a lot of the time, but he himself is not darkness. He himself is not, this psychopath, this like just sociopath who wants to beat up people just because they committed a crime. Like they stole something from a store and he's gonna beat the shit out of them. Like, that's not what we have here. Batman is very much a light in the darkness. He's a hero. That is his ultimate thing. He's there to save people. He's there to help people from going through the suffering that he and others have gone through as a result of, criminals and them doing whatever they want. But while we're on that topic, there is also before that when all of these Riddler cronies are shooting at the crowd before, where were they at? Gotham Square Garden. I was like, it's almost basically named after something in real life, Madison Square Garden, but this one is Gotham Square Garden. So they're in like the auditorium or whatever, and these Riddler cronies are all shooting at them with rifles and all kinds of shit. And one of them pulls out a literal boomstick, like literally the double-barreled shotgun, an Elmer Fudd style and shit, and just shoots him in the chest. Which definitely, again, it doesn't penetrate the armor, but it knocks the fucking wind out of him. And that was one scene where I was like, okay, that kind of read as kind of strange because he falls off onto the scaffolding, but he's able to hold on by one arm, and he's just there as this dude for about 5 minutes is walking over to him, kneels down very slowly puts the gun to his head and is getting ready to like pull the trigger again to like blow his head off when of course, Catwoman comes and saves him. Um, that to me, I was a little bit confused by it because I was like, why would Batman not do, if he's able to take that long, like he wouldn't be able to do something in all that time. I mean, he was able to hold on with one arm, which is not an easy thing to do. So he probably could have tried to do something, but he gets saved by her, and then he's laying there on the like scaffolding as she's getting her ass kicked by this dude, and he's trying to get up to try and help her, but he's not able to summon the strength. And that's when we had another little nod to the comics in that he opens up this little port on his suit. He takes something out of like one of his little pouches, and at first I thought he was gonna like tase himself or something to just give himself a jolt. I wasn't sure what it was until I saw that it had a little vial that had a green liquid in there. And I was like, are they really giving him venom in this movie? Like, they're just going to go ahead and throw that in there? And yeah, they absolutely did, because he takes it, shoots it into himself, kind of like an EpiPen. And then he, of course, since it's venom, he immediately goes into just like this primal rage where he starts yelling. He gets up and he starts beating the ever loving shit out of this dude. And of course, the cops finally come up and they're able to like pull him off and get him to like snap out of it. And then he kind of sees what he did and he's like, oh shit, like what did I just do? So, and of course, when they like pull the guy's mask off, like he's all kinds of fucked up. But I mean, it definitely came a little bit as a surprise to me. Like I said, I was surprised to see that they actually gave him venom in the movie, but it does it makes sense, especially when you like know the comic book lore of, the venom substance itself, in that it started as something that Batman was using to help him fight crime when he needed basically like an energy boost. It was his 5-hour energy shot, but it definitely, that was how it started. So I don't know if that's them trying to do like a very subtle way of possibly introducing Bane coming into this at some point, since Venom does exist now in this particular universe or whatever. But the other thing that you may see going around, and this one's a heavy spoiler, I guess, because I haven't really seen it talked about all that much, although I'm pretty sure it will be soon enough. In the end, when Riddler is in the jail, and he's there seeing that his plan didn't really work out the way that he was hoping it would, he ends up making a new friend, and his new friend is somewhat of a jokester. Some might call him a joker. Like, they did put a Joker in this. We don't really see too much of him. We see a little bit of his face, barely. It's very much cloaked in shadow, but it is in there. I don't know. I don't know who they had playing Joker. That it could very well, end up changing if they actually put him in another movie or whatever. So I'm not gonna read too much into it, but it was very obviously Joker that he's there with. So we'll see what ends up coming from that, I guess. But didn't really see it coming, and then they just kind of put him in there. I was like, well, I guess that makes sense. This is Gotham. But then again, at the same time, I was also thinking like, wow, so he's already gone up against Joker and put him behind bars. Interesting, because this is supposed to be a Batman who's still very much in, the infancy of his crime fighting career. So kind of interesting to see that. But then again, Joker is one of his, older villains along with, others. So I guess it makes sense. But I was a little bit surprised to see it in there regardless. So, okay, that was fine. The other thing that I couldn't really figure out is there was a scene where it seems like Riddler knows Batman's identity as Bruce Wayne, but as you're paying attention to the conversation, it almost seems like, okay, wait, does he know or doesn't he know? Because he keeps saying Bruce Wayne over and over again, but then he ends up talking about it as though he's talking about someone who's not there. So it kind of comes across as a little bit confusing. Does he know that Bruce Wayne is who he's talking to right now or not? Because if not, it makes sense. This is one thing that I've noticed in the comics that it goes back and forth a lot, just depending on who the writer is. In some, Edward Nygma knows exactly who Batman is, and he doesn't reveal it because he enjoys the challenge of having someone to actually, play these games with. And then in other books, like that's his main frustration that he can't figure out who Batman is. So I don't really know which it was. It was kind of like they just kind of combined them both together. I don't really know. So, well, I don't know if that's going to come up again at some point down the future. Again, depending on how well this did, and it seems like it's going to do pretty well. We may see that explored some more, but I don't really know. It just kind of read a little bit confusing. It didn't really hurt the story, but it did read as a little bit confusing. So that's pretty much all that I can say on Riddler. I think that's mostly all that I had to say about the movie. Overall, if I had to give it an overall score, or I'm not even really gonna say a score, if I had to just judge it based off of what I thought about it, I liked it. It was a good movie. Was it the best Batman movie? No, definitely not. There were a lot of things in there that, as I told my boyfriend, there were things in there that bothered me, that annoyed me. But overall, was it a good movie? Yeah, most definitely. Would I see it again? Yeah, I would. I'm not gonna say that I'm rushing to go see it again because I just absolutely loved it that much. No, I uh, I would definitely watch it again, and I would definitely enjoy it. I would get into watching it again. I wouldn't just. There are a lot of movies that I describe as saying like, if it were just on TV and I was busy doing something else, I'd let it play. This is one of those movies that if it were on, I would probably get distracted from what I'm doing to actually sit down and watch it, at least for parts. And then there would be some parts where I'll just be like, okay, I'm going to go do something else. You know what I mean? Because obviously, tokenizations aside, especially with like Gordon and Selena Kyle, like things like that. Yeah. I mean, one thing that I will say for, the Gordon actor, they at least got someone, I guess, who had the same attributes. Not that it's that hard to have someone who has the same attributes as Gordon. You just have a guy wearing glasses and has a mustache. So, I mean, they had those elements the same. I just don't understand what Hollywood has against gingers. It's so confusing to me, but whatever. Um, and with Selena, she was okay. I mean, she didn't really have anything all that weird about her character as far as being Selena Kyle. I mean, the only thing that I kind of found a little bit strange was that she was constantly wearing like very brightly colored wigs, just cuz. I mean, okay, that's fine. I guess that is one way to kind of conceal yourself. That might be something that for women, at least, I guess, kind of helps them kind of blend in or seem even invisible or make it harder for people to remember, or at least for men to remember her if they're wearing different hair. I don't know. Maybe that's a thing for them. So, but yeah, the movie itself, pretty good. I'm not gonna lie about that. I enjoyed it. I would watch it again. I would absolutely, get invested into watching it again. But it's I'm not gonna sit here and say that it was the best movie I've ever seen or anything like that. It's definitely not that. It is a good movie. Is it worth your time to watch it? I would think so. Just depending if you're one of those people who's absolutely just against them ever changing anything of the characters, and you find it like an affront to you, a slap in the face that they changed Jim Gordon into this and they cast some other actor. Okay, then yeah, it's probably not going to be for you, because I've seen some people say like, oh, the writing was terrible, it was too long, it was, they didn't really have any clear focus with their where they were going with the story. And okay, it kind of seems to me, and this is not to throw shade at anybody, but it kind of seems to me that the people saying that are the people who walked into it already planning to not enjoy the movie. They were going to be as critical, as harsh about it as they possibly could. And you know what, that's fine. That's their own prerogative. I just don't really understand the point of going to see a movie that you already plan to hate. I don't, that's why I'm the type of person, I'm not going to walk into a movie, especially, I don't have the biggest, highest hope. I don't have any hopes for DC or Marvel properties anymore, but I'm not going to walk into it already planning to hate it. And that seems to me like there were people who walked into it already planning, no matter what happened, no matter if it were long, if it were short, if it were bright, if it were dark, they were going to hate it because they just wanted to. And that's fine. If you want to walk into a movie like that, like I said, it kind of seems like a waste of time and money to just go see something that you already plan to hate. Like, why not just wait for it to come out like on HBO Max or something and then hate it then? What are you really missing out on? Is it really because you had to go and be there to be one of the first people to say you hated it? I don't really know. I don't get that mentality, but that's why I'm saying I don't walk into these movies doing that type of thing. I walk into it like, okay, maybe it'll be good, maybe it'll be bad, but I will decide when I'm actually watching it. And I judge it based off of its merits, all of its individual merits, just because, I mean, for me, it goes beyond even just being comic book movie and it's a Batman movie. I'm someone who I've always just been an appreciator of film, I guess, that I enjoy watching movies for their elements, for, them as a whole. And not just because like, well, I need to see these characters be just like this, and if they're not just like that, then the movie sucks. And that's one way to watch a movie, I guess. That's obviously some people's way to watch a movie. It's not mine. When I watch a movie, I'm watching, an actual movie for all of its, working pieces, and I'm going to study and I guess, kind of independently look at each one. One thing that I will say for sure, the music in this movie is phenomenal, except for the end. It kind of like at the very end they had the a Nirvana song, which kind of made sense because I remember, and I talked about it on a live stream, where there was that moment when apparently Matt Reeves was writing for the movie and he heard a Nirvana song. I don't remember which one it was or if he even said which one it was, but I'm pretty sure it's the one they have in the movie. That was kind of like served as his inspiration for part of the movie and for Bruce Wayne's characterization. So I kind of saw that coming, but at the same time I was like, after all of the great like music that they have in here, just beautifully arranged, beautifully composed, it matched it very well. It definitely evoked many times like the old Batman movies and even, the animated series. It evoked that same sense, just this beautiful orchestral music that is put together. Awesome. I definitely loved it. So I don't really know. I don't have too much else to say because this review has been going on for quite some time now. So I'm going to go ahead and end it here. Overall, like I said, good movie. You want to go watch it, go watch it. Just if you're, like I said, if you're one of those people who already has enough of an issue that, Riddler looks the way that he does, that, Jim Gordon and Selena Kyle look the way that they do, if you already hate that so much that you see it as a slap in the face to you, then you probably don't want to watch this because you're not going to have any fun with it. You're not going to enjoy it because the entire time you're going to be sitting there thinking, that's not Jim Gordon, that's not Selena Kyle, that's not the Riddler, that's not this, that's not. Just don't waste your time. If you're going to walk into it knowing you're going to hate it, don't waste your time. And don't go in there expecting like, well, maybe they'll actually surprise me. No, you've already decided where you land on it. Just don't do it. But if you're the type of person who's going to say, you know what, regardless of what it is, I might be able to like it, then sure, go for it. I would recommend it. I thought it was a good movie. I found it enjoyable. So That's going to do it for me here on this movie review. So I would love to hear any comments, any thoughts. If y'all have seen it already, let me know what you thought about it, where you land on this particular issue of these characters, and just whatever thoughts you may have about this. Feel free to share them with me. You know where to do so in the appropriate section down below. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure you like the video, you're subscribed, hit the notification bell, and if you would like to share this movie review, I appreciate you. I appreciate you a whole lot. But that's going to do it for me here. So if you're done, go read a book. And if not, then I'll see you on my next video.